The night Emily Hart disappeared, Aaliyah Brooks lost everything: her career, her freedom, and the man she loved. Framed for a crime she didn't commit, she walked into prison as a designer and walked out as a disgrace. But when fate brings her face to face with a powerful stranger, and the truth buried beneath the ashes, Aaliyah learns that some fires don't destroy you, they forge you. Welcome to Mr. Roberts Stories. If you love gripping tales of love, betrayal, revenge, and shocking twists, you've just found your new home. Here, every story will pull you in, make your heart race, and leave you guessing until the very last word. Now, here's the deal. Watch till the end because the best surprises are always saved for last. And if you enjoy the story, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss another unforgettable story. Every story on Mr. Roberts Stories isn't just something you watch, it's something you feel, something that stays with you long after the video ends. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. Trust me, you're going to want to watch every second. This is Mr. Roberts Stories, where every story is an experience. The night of the Hart Atelier spring launch was supposed to mark the beginning of Aaliyah Brooks' dream life. The runway was glowing under chandeliers, models glided in silk and velvet, and her name, designed by Aaliyah Brooks, was projected across the massive LED screen. Cameras flashed, music thumped, and investors whispered about her as the next big name in American fashion. Aaliyah stood backstage, her heart pounding, dressed in a tailored black jumpsuit she designed herself. She felt unstoppable. The applause for her final collection echoed through the hall, and when she turned, she saw Ethan Cole, her fiancé and the marketing director of Hart Atelier, smiling proudly at her. He reached for her hand, and for a brief moment, everything in her world was perfect. "You did it, baby," Ethan whispered against her ear. "You've officially outshined the entire industry tonight." She laughed softly, her chest swelling with pride. "We did it. You believed in me when no one else did." But not everyone was celebrating. Just beyond the curtain, her stepsister, Emily Hart, watched the scene with clenched fists. The envy in her eyes burned hotter than the stage lights. She was the biological daughter of the Hart family, yet Aaliyah, the outsider her father adopted after remarrying, was the one being praised. All her life, Emily had been the face of Hart Atelier, but lately, every headline mentioned Aaliyah's name instead. The genius behind the brand, they called her. And Ethan, the man Emily had secretly loved for years, only had eyes for Aaliyah. That night, Emily smiled for the cameras, hugged Aaliyah tightly for the photographers, and whispered in her ear, "Enjoy it while it lasts, sister." The next morning, chaos erupted. Emily was missing. Her phone was found in the parking lot, her purse abandoned. A single text had been sent from Aaliyah's phone to Emily's father. "If you want your daughter back, wire $2 million to this account." Aaliyah froze when the police barged into her studio, waving her own phone as evidence. "Miss Brooks, you're under arrest for kidnapping Emily Hart." Her mind spun. "What? That's impossible. She's my sister." Ethan tried to speak, but confusion painted his face. "Ollie, what's going on?" "I don't know," she cried, trembling as they handcuffed her. "I didn't send that message. Someone's framing me." But the evidence was airtight. Security footage showed Aaliyah's car near the place where Emily disappeared. Her fingerprints were found on Emily's scarf. And the bank account that received the ransom money had been opened under Aaliyah's name. Her pleas meant nothing. The press devoured the story, labeling her the designer who kidnapped her sister. Overnight, she went from rising star to national disgrace. During the trial, she looked for Ethan in the courtroom, praying he would believe her. But as the verdict was read, guilty, he couldn't even meet her eyes. The day she was sentenced to 3 years in prison, he broke off their engagement. No explanations. No goodbye. Her last glimpse of him was outside the courthouse, holding Emily's sobbing mother as the cameras flashed. Prison changed everything. Gone were the soft fabrics and champagne lights of her old life. Her days were spent scrubbing floors, stitching rough uniforms, and learning how to breathe through humiliation. The nights were worse, filled with nightmares of betrayal, headlines, and Ethan's cold silence. Still, Aaliyah refused to let prison destroy her. She started drawing again, using pencil nubs and scraps of paper. She drew gowns, shoes, dreams. Each sketch was a promise to herself, I'll come back stronger. And she did. 3 years later, the prison gates opened, and she walked out into the sunlight, a free woman with nothing left but her pride. She had imagined her family waiting for her, maybe even her father ready to make amends. Instead, no one came. She took a bus back to Manhattan, her heart pounding as the city skyline rose before her. It had been her kingdom once. Now it looked foreign, almost cruel. When she reached the Hart Mansion, she paused before pressing the gate buzzer. Her reflection in the steel gate startled her, thinner, older, her once glossy curls now dull and dry. But her eyes still carried fire. The gate opened. Inside, laughter and music spilled from the living room. Balloons, champagne glasses, and a cake with, "Welcome home, Emily," written in gold frosting greeted her. Emily was alive. She stood at the center of the room, radiant in a white dress, her hair styled perfectly for the cameras that surrounded her. She was hosting a live stream, Emily Hart, The Survivor's Journey. And beside her, arm wrapped around her waist, was Ethan Cole. The room fell silent as Aaliyah stepped in. All eyes turned. The whispers started immediately. Is that her? The ex-con sister? She looks terrible. Emily's painted smile faltered. Aaliyah, you're out. You're alive, Aaliyah whispered, her voice shaking. They said, I recovered. Miraculously, Emily said softly, her tone dripping with innocence. You didn't get the news? Aaliyah's gaze darted to Ethan. You knew. Ethan looked away, guilt flickering across his face. Aaliyah, this isn't the time. She stepped closer. You knew she was alive and you let me rot in prison? Mr. Hart rose from his seat, his expression stone cold. That's enough, Aaliyah. You've caused this family enough shame. Leave. Dad, she whispered, you really think I did it? He didn't answer. Emily placed a trembling hand over her heart. Please, Aaliyah, you're scaring me. Laughter rippled through the guests. Someone murmured, unbelievable. She's pretending to be the victim again. Aaliyah felt her world tilt. Her knees weakened, but she forced herself to stand tall. You all wanted to believe I was guilty because it was easier than facing the truth. She turned to Emily. Whatever game you're playing, it won't last forever. Emily's smile hardened. You should go before someone calls the police. Aaliyah met her gaze one last time. Don't worry. I won't be back. But one day the truth will. She turned and walked out, the cold night air slicing through her thin prison coat. Her tears blurred the city lights as she wandered the streets, past billboards flashing Emily's face, the designer who survived. Everywhere she looked, her sister's name gleamed where hers had once been. At midnight, she sat on a park bench overlooking the East River, clutching the sketchbook she carried through prison. She flipped it open to a drawing of a phoenix, rising from flames. Her voice trembled but didn't break as she whispered, they took everything. My name, my career, my love. But they didn't take me. A soft wind rustled her curls as if the city itself was listening. I'll rebuild, she promised. Even if I have to start from the ashes. And somewhere across the city, in a darkened penthouse, Landon Pierce, the man whose life she would soon change forever, was staring at her old design portfolio on his desk, wondering who the mysterious woman behind those sketches really was. Aaliyah didn't know it yet, but the fire that tried to destroy her had only forged something stronger. Her story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The first months after Aaliyah's release were the hardest. She found herself in a small apartment in Queens, barely large enough to fit her bed, her sewing machine, and a stack of old sketches. The walls were cracked, the ceiling leaked when it rained, but it was hers. Freedom had a price, and this was it. To survive, she took on small alteration jobs, hemming dresses, repairing jackets, anything that paid. But deep inside, she knew she was meant for more. The world had taken her name, but not her talent. So she decided to start over. Under a new name. Aaliyah Brooks. With fake references and quiet determination, she applied for work at a mid-level fashion studio downtown. The pay was low, the hours long, but it was a chance to touch fabric again, to create. When she got the job as an assistant designer, she cried in the bathroom stall, clutching the offer letter to her chest. Every day she kept her head down, sketching in silence while others bragged about their celebrity clients and glamorous events. She avoided cameras, interviews, and anything that could expose her. Aaliyah Brooks no longer existed. Aaliyah Brooks just wanted to survive. Until one night, everything changed. It was raining hard when she left the studio, the streets glistening under the city lights. Her umbrella had broken hours ago, and by the time she reached the corner of 52nd and Lexington, she was drenched to the bone. That's when she heard it, a screech of tires, a flash of headlights, and then a crash that shattered the quiet. A black car had slammed into a lamppost. The front was crumpled, steam hissing from the hood. Without thinking, Aaliyah dropped her bag and ran toward it. "Sir? Can you hear me?" she shouted, trying to open the driver's door. It was jammed. Smoke thickened around them. Through the shattered glass, she saw a man inside, unconscious, bleeding from his temple. His suit was soaked with rain and blood. Panic surged through her, but she refused to back away. She pulled on the handle with all her strength until it gave way. The man slumped forward, and she wrapped her arms around him, dragging him out of the car just as a small flame burst beneath the hood. "Stay with me," she whispered, tapping his cheek. "You're okay, just breathe." His eyes fluttered open for a second, dark, distant, and confused. He tried to speak, but she shook her head. "Don't move." Moments later, sirens wailed in the distance. When paramedics arrived, she quietly stepped back, watching as they lifted him into the ambulance. Before she could slip away, one of the medics asked, "What's your name, miss?" Aaliyah hesitated, then said softly, "Aaliyah Brooks." She didn't know that the man she had saved was Landon Pierce, billionaire CEO of Pierce Industries, one of the most powerful figures in the country. Days passed. She went back to work, trying to forget the incident. But one morning, her boss stormed in waving an invitation. "Everyone's talking about this gala," she said. "It's the Pierce Foundation charity ball. Big fashion names. You're coming, Ally. It's a good networking opportunity." Aaliyah's stomach twisted. She hated events, crowds, cameras, attention. But she also knew she couldn't say no. So, reluctantly, she agreed. The night of the gala glittered like a dream she no longer belonged to. The ballroom shimmered with gold chandeliers, and the city's elite floated around in designer gowns and polished smiles. Aaliyah wore a simple black dress she'd stitched herself, modest but elegant. She tried to stay near the back, sipping sparkling water, invisible among the glamour. But fate had other plans. Emily Hart was there. Her stepsister glided into the room in a silver gown that caught every light. Her hand rested on Ethan Cole's arm, her fiancé now. When she spotted Aaliyah, her smile widened like a predator's. "Well, if it isn't the infamous Aaliyah Brooks," Emily said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Or should I say, Aaliyah Brooks? Heads turned. Aaliyah froze. Ethan's voice joined in, smooth but cutting. "Didn't expect to see you here, Aaliyah. Still chasing other people's success." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Someone took a photo. Then another. Emily tilted her head, feigning sympathy. "You're brave for showing your face here after everything. Really, I admire your confidence." Aaliyah swallowed hard, fighting the sting behind her eyes. "I didn't come here for you." Emily smirked. "Oh, I know. You came here to find your next victim." The whispers started again. Phones flashed. Aaliyah turned to leave, but before she could move, a deep, commanding voice cut through the noise. "That's enough." The crowd parted as a tall man stepped forward, dressed in a tailored black suit, his presence quiet but powerful. His eyes locked on Aaliyah with recognition. It was him, the man from the crash. Landon Pierce. He moved to stand beside her, his hand resting lightly on her back, a gesture that sent murmurs through the room. "Miss Brooks saved my life," he said evenly, his gaze sweeping over Emily and Ethan. "And I don't appreciate people disrespecting her." Emily blinked, caught off guard. I didn't mean." "You did," Landon interrupted. And next time you decide to humiliate someone, make sure the cameras aren't watching." The crowd fell silent. Aaliyah felt her pulse race. Landon turned to her, his voice lowering. "Come with me." He led her out of the ballroom, away from the flashing cameras and cruel laughter. In the quiet corridor, she finally exhaled. "Why did you do that?" she asked softly. "Because you did the same for me," he replied. "And because I don't like seeing good people torn apart for entertainment." She frowned. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "And the world already knows too much about you." Her breath caught. You know who I am?" He nodded. "I do my research." "You were framed, weren't you?" Aaliyah looked away. "Everyone thinks I wasn't." "I don't care what they think," Landon said simply. "But I know what it's like to be judged without being understood." She studied him, this man who seemed made of steel, yet spoke with quiet empathy. There was something in his eyes, a loneliness that mirrored her own. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Marry me." Aaliyah blinked. "What?" He didn't smile. "You've seen what happens when rumors spread. The press is already spinning stories about us tonight. The ex-con designer and the billionaire. If I don't act fast, they'll turn it into a scandal that hurts my company and your fragile chance at rebuilding." She stared at him, stunned. "You're serious?" "Completely. You want to marry me, to fix your image? It's mutually beneficial," he said. "You gain protection from the media and a fresh start under my name. I silence the rumors and prove I'm capable of love and loyalty." She laughed bitterly. "So, a business deal?" He met her gaze steadily. "Exactly. No emotions. No publicity beyond what's necessary. Just a partnership, for both our survival." Aaliyah crossed her arms. "And what happens when people start asking questions? When they dig into my past again?" "I'll handle it," Landon said firmly. "You fought alone long enough. Let me take the heat for once." His words cut through her defenses. After years of standing on her own, of being hated, doubted, and destroyed, someone was offering to stand beside her, even if it wasn't for love. Still, her voice trembled. "And if I say no?" He shrugged lightly. "Then you walk away, and I deal with the headlines alone. But I think you're tired of walking alone, Aaliyah." She hesitated. Every part of her screamed that it was insane. But another part, the weary, scarred part, whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to start over. Finally, she nodded. "Fine. I'll do it. But we set rules. No emotional games. No fake fairy tales." Landon's lips curved faintly. "Agreed." They shook hands, a deal sealed between two broken souls beneath the glittering city lights. Neither of them knew it yet, but the line between business and something deeper was about to blur in ways neither expected. Because sometimes, two people running from their pasts end up colliding into their future. Aaliyah never imagined herself living in a mansion again, especially not one that overlooked the skyline of New York City. The Pierce estate was a world of glass walls, marble floors, and silence. The kind of silence that wasn't peaceful but watchful, waiting for someone to make a mistake. When she first stepped inside as Mrs. Aaliyah Pierce, the air felt heavier. Landon's staff greeted her politely, but she could feel the judgment in their eyes. To them, she was the ex-con their boss had married overnight. A scandal wrapped in silk. Landon had warned her that his world was cold and ruthless. He wasn't exaggerating. At dinner that first night, she met Vivian Pierce, Landon's mother, a woman who looked like she'd been sculpted from ice. Her pearls gleamed, her posture perfect, her expression sharp enough to cut. "So," Vivian began, her tone smooth but venomous, "you're the woman who saved my son's life. How poetic." Aaliyah smiled politely. "It wasn't planned. I just did what anyone would do." "Anyone?" Vivian's gaze hardened. "I doubt that. Most people would have called 911, not dragged a billionaire out of a burning car. But I suppose you have a flair for dramatic rescues, and for headlines." Landon set down his wine glass, his jaw tightening. "Mother." Vivian didn't look at him. "Landon, I'm simply curious. It's not every day a woman with her background becomes part of this family." Aaliyah straightened her shoulders. My background isn't a secret, Mrs. Pierce. But I'm not defined by it anymore. Vivian's cold smile didn't waver. We'll see. The rest of the dinner was a blur of polite insults and hidden glances. When it ended, Aaliyah excused herself and escaped to her new room, massive, elegant, and lonely. She stood by the window, watching the city lights below, wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. Then came a knock. Landon stepped inside, his tie loosened, his usually composed face soft with guilt. I'm sorry about my mother, he said quietly. She cares too much about appearances. Aaliyah let out a weak laugh. So I've noticed. He hesitated. You handled her well. Most people crumble under her stare. I've been through worse, she said simply. Prison teaches you not to flinch. Something flickered in his eyes, admiration, maybe even respect. You don't scare easily, do you? I used to, she admitted. Not anymore. He smiled faintly, almost to himself. But, because this marriage, it's going to test both of us. Weeks passed, and their strange arrangement began to settle into a rhythm. They attended charity galas, posed for magazines, and signed documents that made their union look perfectly orchestrated. In public, they played the role of the power couple. In private, they lived separate lives, or tried to. But sometimes the walls between them cracked. One evening, Aaliyah found Landon in his study, staring at a photo of his late father. He didn't notice her at first. His hand trembled slightly as he set the frame down. You miss him, she said softly. He turned, startled. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, she replied. It's almost midnight. He gave a tired half-smile. Work keeps me awake. Memories keep me up longer. Aaliyah crossed the room and leaned against the desk. You don't have to pretend with me, Landon. I know what it's like to lose everything and still have to smile for cameras. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his voice lowered. The night of the crash. I was driving to the bridge. I wasn't sure I'd stop. Her breath caught. You mean? He nodded. My father's death, my company falling apart, the pressure, it all became too much. And then you appeared. Pulled me out of that car like you'd done it 1,000 times before. Maybe that's why I couldn't just walk away. Aaliyah's throat tightened. She wanted to say something, anything, but words failed her. So she just whispered, you were meant to survive. Maybe we both were. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting second, the room felt different. Warmer. Softer. But peace never lasted long in their world. When Emily Hart found out about the marriage, she lost her mind. How dare she? Emily screamed, pacing her luxury penthouse as Ethan tried to calm her. She takes my family's sympathy, my career, and now she's married to Landon Pierce? The Landon Pierce. Ethan sighed. You don't even like him. That's not the point. Emily snapped. People are calling her Mrs. Pierce. They're treating her like she's some kind of phoenix, rising from the ashes. She's a liar. A criminal. And I'll make sure everyone remembers that. The next morning, tabloids exploded with headlines. Aaliyah Brooks traps billionaire in secret marriage. Ex-convict turned designer manipulates her way to the top. Is Landon Pierce the next victim of Aaliyah's schemes? Social media turned vicious. Hashtags trended. Hashtag Gold Digger Aaliyah. Hashtag Pierce Scandal. Old mugshots resurfaced. News anchors debated whether she had played Landon for money. When Aaliyah saw the headlines, her hands shook. Memories of her arrest flooded back. The flashing lights, the shouting, the handcuffs. It was happening again. Vivian didn't help. I warned you, Landon, she hissed at her son during breakfast. She's poison. The media will destroy everything you've built. But this time, Landon didn't stay silent. He rose from his chair, his voice sharp. The only poison in this house is judgment, Mother. Vivian froze, shocked. Excuse me? He turned toward the cameras waiting outside the mansion. His assistant tried to stop him, but Landon marched straight through the doors, pulling Aaliyah beside him. Reporters swarmed. Microphones and flashes filled the air. Mr. Pierce, is it true your wife manipulated you into marriage? Is your company in trouble because of her? Did she lie about saving your life? Landon raised his hand, silencing them. Then, with steady conviction, he said, "This woman saved my life. She's my wife. And she's the best decision I ever made." The crowd went silent. Aaliyah blinked, stunned. He wasn't reading from a script. He wasn't acting. He meant every word. He looked at her, and for the first time, the walls between them fell completely. In that moment, Aaliyah realized she wasn't alone anymore. Someone had finally chosen to believe her, not because of proof, but because they saw her heart. That night, as the city buzzed with news of Landon's declaration, the story began to shift. Reporters started digging into the past, not Aaliyah's but Emily's. Old police records resurfaced. Anonymous sources hinted that parts of the kidnapping case never added up. The ransom account opened too easily, the CCTV footage tampered with. One journalist tweeted, "New evidence suggests the Hart kidnapping might have been staged." Developing story. The internet went wild. The Hart's picture-perfect empire began to crack. In her penthouse, Emily threw her phone across the room. No. This isn't happening." Ethan looked pale. "Maybe we should just stay quiet." "Quiet?" she hissed. "She's turning him against me. Against us." She clenched her fists, hatred burning hotter than ever. "If Aaliyah wants a war, I'll give her one." But deep down, Emily didn't realize something. This time, Aaliyah wasn't the same broken woman she'd once destroyed. She had Landon beside her, and the truth was finally clawing its way to the surface. And as the fire of scandal roared higher, it was no longer Aaliyah who was burning. It was Emily. The morning after Landon's public declaration, Aaliyah woke to silence. No reporters outside, no angry headlines flashing her name. For the first time in years, she didn't wake up to a world that hated her. Instead, she opened her eyes to the golden light of dawn spilling across the room and the faint sound of rain tapping against the glass. Landon was already awake, sitting by the window with a cup of coffee. He turned when she stirred. "Morning," he said softly. She smiled sleepily. "Morning. Did the world end while I was sleeping?" He chuckled. "Almost. But you're trending for the right reasons this time." She blinked. "What do you mean?" He handed her his phone. The headline read, "New evidence suggests Emily Hart's kidnapping was staged." Aaliyah's heart stopped. Beneath the headline were side-by-side photos of her and Emily, the fallen sister and the golden one, and a caption that said, "Did fame and jealousy lead Emily Hart to frame her own sister?" Her hands trembled. "This can't be real." "It's very real," Landon said. "I hired a private investigator last month. I had a feeling something wasn't right about your case." He found evidence the police overlooked or ignored. He placed a folder on the bed. Inside were photographs, emails, and bank statements. Each page peeled back a layer of betrayal she had long buried. A fake ransom account linked to Emily's assistant. Security footage from the night Emily disappeared, showing her leaving in a friend's car, completely unharmed. A deleted text thread between Emily and Ethan, planning how to make Aaliyah pay. Aaliyah's voice broke. "If she did all this just to destroy me?" Landon's eyes were steady. "She wanted what you had. Your talent. Your father's love. Ethan's attention. When she couldn't have it, she took it by force." Tears welled up, but she didn't cry out of weakness. It was relief. Finally, after 3 long years, the truth had surfaced. Landon reached over and took her hand. "You don't have to fight this alone anymore. We'll take it to the police, to the press, whatever it takes." She met his gaze. "You've already done so much for me." He smiled faintly. "Let me finish what we started." Within a week, the truth hit the world like a storm. The investigators' report leaked online, followed by video evidence and sworn testimonies. The media who once called Aaliyah a criminal now turned their eyes on the Harts. The Hart heiress hoax, new proof of a staged kidnapping. Emily Hart lied. Designer Aaliyah Brooks was innocent all along. Hart Atelier faces lawsuits as scandal unfolds. The internet exploded. Influencers, journalists, and even old friends who had once abandoned her now posted apologies. Hashtags like hashtag justice for Aaliyah and hashtag truth burns bright trended for days. The Heart's empire crumbled overnight. Stock prices dropped. Partnerships were cancelled. Fashion magazines pulled Emily from their covers. When reporters cornered Ethan Cole outside his office, his usual charm cracked. "I didn't know," he muttered, sweating under the cameras. Emily said, "She told me Aaliyah was dangerous." But no one believed him. Emily went into hiding. Her social media accounts vanished. Her name, once celebrated, became synonymous with deceit. And through it all, Aaliyah stayed quiet, graceful, calm, dignified. She didn't gloat or seek revenge. She didn't need to. The truth was louder than anything she could have said. One afternoon, Aaliyah received a message from her father. "Please, come home. We need to talk." Her hands shook as she read it. The last time she had been inside the Hart mansion, he had told her to leave. Now, walking up those familiar marble steps again felt like stepping into the past she had fought so hard to escape. When the door opened, her father stood there, older, grayer, his proud posture bent under the weight of shame. "Aaliyah," he whispered. "You came." She nodded stiffly. "You wanted to talk." He led her inside, to the same living room where she'd once been humiliated in front of strangers. The walls seemed smaller now, the gold trimmings dull. He sat across from her, his voice trembling. "I failed you. I believed lies because they came from my own blood. I was supposed to protect you, and instead, I let them destroy you." For a long moment, she couldn't speak. She had imagined this conversation 1,000 times, each one filled with anger. But now, looking at him, all she saw was regret. "I waited for you to believe me," she said softly. "For years, I begged for one person, just one, to see I wasn't what they said I was." Tears filled his eyes. "I see it now. I see you. And I'm sorry, Aaliyah. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know that." She took a deep breath, her heart heavy but steady. "I do forgive you, Dad. Not because you deserve it, but because I need to move on. Holding on to hate won't change the past." He reached for her hand, but she stood. "I can't stay here. Not anymore. I need to live for me now." And with that, she walked out, leaving behind the mansion, the ghosts, and the pain that had once defined her. Weeks later, Landon called her to meet him at a new address. When she arrived, she found herself standing before a large studio space in downtown Manhattan. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting off bolts of fabric and sewing machines that gleamed like new. A sign above the door read, "Ash's Atelier." Aaliyah turned to him, speechless. "Landon, what is this?" He smiled, that rare, quiet smile she had come to love. "Your beginning. You once said they burned your name, your career, your dreams. So I thought we'd build something new from what's left, something that rises from the ashes." She covered her mouth, tears spilling freely now. "You did all this, for me?" "For us," he corrected gently. "I told you this marriage was just business. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling that way." He took a step closer. "You taught me how to feel again, Aaliyah. You taught me that strength isn't silence, it's surviving the fire and still choosing to love." Her heart ached in the best way possible. "And you taught me that not all promises are empty." He brushed a tear from her cheek, his touch tender. "So what do you say? Will you build this empire with me, not because of a contract, but because you want to?" She smiled through her tears. "I already am." He leaned in, their foreheads touching as the city glowed behind them. For the first time in years, Aaliyah didn't feel broken. She felt whole. The world had tried to bury her, but she had bloomed through the cracks. Months later, Ash's Atelier became the most talked about brand in fashion, praised not for wealth or glamour, but for resilience and truth. Every piece Aaliyah designed carried a story, a fragment of pain turned into beauty. At the grand opening, she stood on stage in front of flashing cameras, her voice steady and bright. "This isn't just my victory," she said. "It's proof that you can rise, no matter how many times life burns you down." The audience erupted in applause. And in the crowd, Landon watched her with quiet pride, his expression softening when she looked his way. Their eyes met, and in that instant, words were unnecessary. They had started as strangers bound by necessity. Now they were partners, two souls forged in the same fire, walking through the ashes together. As the night sky glittered above them, Aaliyah felt peace. Not the fragile kind that depends on others' approval, but the kind born from truth and love. She turned to Landon and whispered, "You found me in the fire." He smiled. "No, you found yourself. I just made sure the world saw it." And as they stood beneath the lights of her new beginning, Aaliyah finally understood she had never needed to prove her worth. She had always been enough. Because sometimes you have to lose everything to find the love and the life you were always meant for. Beneath the ashes, she rose. And this time, she was unstoppable. 6 months later, spring returned to New York. The city, once cold and harsh, now shimmered with color, blossoms on the trees, laughter in the streets, and a sense of renewal that mirrored Aaliyah's own heart. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Ash's atelier, illuminating rows of elegant gowns and tailored suits. Each design told a story, one of survival, truth, and beauty reborn from pain. The boutique was no longer just a fashion studio. It had become a symbol of transformation. Aaliyah stood near the window, a cup of coffee in hand, watching people stop to admire the display. The mannequin in the center wore her favorite creation, a flowing white dress made from layers of silk and ash-gray lace. Its name was Resilience. Her assistant, Chloe, entered with a bright smile. "The Paris buyers confirmed, they want your full spring collection. And Vogue just called. They're naming you designer of the year." Aaliyah let out a soft laugh of disbelief. "After everything that happened, I still can't believe this is real." Chloe grinned. "You earned every bit of it." As Chloe left to answer another call, Aaliyah turned back to her sketchbook, running her fingers over the fresh designs. Her life had once been a wreckage, a storm of pain and betrayal. But now, every stroke of her pencil felt like a step toward peace. The door opened behind her, and she didn't have to turn to know who it was. "I figured I'd find you here," Landon said, his voice warm and steady. She smiled. "Where else would I be?" He crossed the room, his usual sleek suit replaced by something more relaxed, just jeans and a black shirt. It still amazed her how a man so powerful could look so effortlessly human with her. He handed her an envelope. "This came for you." She opened it, expecting another business proposal or interview request. But instead, it was a letter, handwritten, neat and formal. It was from her father. "My dearest Aaliyah, your story reminded the world of something I forgot long ago, that truth, though buried, always finds a way to breathe. I've stepped down from Heart Atelier. It's time the right heart led this industry. If you'll have it, I'd like to invest in Ash's Atelier, not as your father, but as a man who believes in your vision. I love you. And I am proud of you." Aaliyah read the words twice, tears filling her eyes. It wasn't about money. It was about healing. The bridge she thought had burned forever was quietly rebuilding itself. Landon's hand brushed her shoulder. "You okay?" She nodded, smiling through her tears. "Yeah, more than okay." He studied her face for a moment before speaking. "You know, when we first met, I thought you were fire, untouchable, dangerous. I didn't realize you were light." She turned toward him, teasing softly, "You're getting poetic on me again, Mr. Pierce." He grinned. "Maybe I've been spending too much time around a designer who turns pain into art." She laughed, and he pulled her close, their foreheads touching as the city buzzed softly outside. "I love you, Aaliyah," he whispered. "Not because you saved my life, but because you gave it meaning." Her eyes softened. "And I love you for seeing me, when no one else did." They stayed like that for a while, the world outside fading away. It wasn't the grand kind of love she used to dream about when she was young, it was better. Quiet, steady. Later that evening, they walked together through the city streets, hand in hand. Cameras flashed as they passed, but Aaliyah didn't flinch. She had lived through worse. Now, the attention no longer scared her, it empowered her. They stopped by a small cafe near Central Park, where an old TV played the evening news. Months after the Heart scandal, Former designer Emily Hart has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for obstruction and fraud. Meanwhile, Aaliyah Brooks, once accused of the same crime, has become one of fashion's brightest stars. The reporter's voice faded into background noise as Aaliyah looked out the window. Across the park, cherry blossoms danced in the wind, soft, pink, fleeting, but impossibly beautiful. Landon reached over and squeezed her hand. "You did it." She shook her head gently. "We did it." Back at the atelier, as night fell, Aaliyah walked through the quiet showroom one last time before closing. She stopped in front of the Resilience dress again, tracing its delicate lace. Behind her, Landon switched off the lights, leaving only the soft glow of the street lamps filtering through the windows. She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's strange. I used to think my story ended the day I went to prison. But it was only the beginning." He smiled. "The fire didn't destroy you, Aaliyah. It revealed you." She looked at him, her heart full. "Then let's keep building from the ashes." He took her hand. "Always." Outside, New York shimmered beneath the night sky. The city that had once judged her now celebrated her. The family that once disowned her had fallen silent, replaced by the love she had built herself. Aaliyah Brooks, the ex-convict, the outcast, the forgotten designer, was gone. In her place stood a woman who had faced ruin and found redemption. As she locked the atelier doors for the night, she looked up at the glowing sign, Ashes Atelier, and smiled. Because she finally understood what it meant to rise. Not to return to who she was before the fire, but to become someone stronger, freer, and unbreakable beneath the ashes. And somewhere deep inside, she whispered to herself, "This time I'm home."